And call to order. We have a quorum. Could we please have the roll call, Mr. Chief Deputy City Clerk?
Absolutely, Mayor. Mayor Sticks.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Councilmember Lang.
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Here. Thank you. And welcome everyone to the June 25th, 2024 meeting of the Ojai City Council. Weston, would you please say the pledge for us?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Welcome, public. Please rise as you are able. And our flag is in the back of the room here. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And before we begin, I'd like to thank our IT wizard, James Hahn. If you're listening, James Hahn, for our beautiful remodeling of this room and lots of technological advancements that he is working on. So thank you, James. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second it.
Okay, wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, we will move on to public communication. So we will begin with Randy Haney, then Robin Gerber, and then William Wyrick.
Mayor, if I may, just for the agenda, I knew of no commissioner reports.
Okay, thank you very much, Weston.
Well, this caught me off guard. I didn't think you guys moved this quickly. I want to start out quickly by saying this. The last time I spoke here, I wasn't very kind to Mayor Sticks. And that's not how we need to interact in this community. It's not how we need to it's just not Ojai. So I want to start out by publicly saying I'm sorry for the way I behaved that evening. That's on me. And what made me think about this real quick was I've seen you twice in the last couple weeks. And instead of waving to you, I just drive by you. And then I get home and I'm sitting in my truck and I'm reflecting on the fact that you can disagree with someone in policy. It doesn't mean you have to dislike them, and it doesn't mean you have to hate them. And we are at a reflective point right now in this community regarding this homelessness issue. And I think it's an opportunity that we all take a step back, and instead of pointing fingers and trying to win the day, that we grab hands and we move forward together on this. So I met with a group of people, and Jane Walters from Help Ojai came and gave us a lot of information on what's going on here. And through that discussion, a couple of us wrote a piece of paper. You guys all have it. And I'd like to just read it into the record, and I'll go from there. To the council members, Francina, Lang, Whitman, Rule, and to Mayor Sticks. This is from a group of concerned community members, and it's the request for a formation of an ad hoc committee. We, the community members of the city of Ojai, have watched our city council struggle to provide a permanent supportive transitional housing facility for the unhoused population within the community and boundaries of the city of Ojai. As a small town with limited resources, neither the Ojai City Council nor its staff have either the time or the expertise to fulfill the stated requirements necessary to secure the state's spending of the $12 million grant money. Ojai is uniquely challenged by these requirements, and it will take the combined talents of all of its stakeholders, all of us, the city government and the appropriate experts, to make this happen in a short time that we have left. Fortunately, Ojai is blessed with a well-meaning and concerned citizenry with ample time and expertise to examine our options and make sound recommendations to the city council to bring this grant and to bring this facility to fruition. We respectfully request that our city council create an ad hoc committee charged with the responsibility of examining the methods by which Ojai can meet the grant demand and reporting its findings back to the city council in a timely manner. The following is a summary of how such a committee could be or would be formed and operate.
Thank you, Randy.
May I request?
I'm 3 minutes. Robin Gerber is next, then
Wait,
William Wyrick.
But I can request that he be given time to finish.
We
Former council member Randy Haney. I can request that, right?
If the council majority so approves, as of an appeal of the ruling of the
Ye-
chair,
yes,
it's
I
an appeal,
understand.
it's a second, and then 3 votes.
okay. Is
Yeah.
there a second?
Is there a second? Okay.
Okay. All right. Robin
That's all
Gerber.
right. I always want to try. That's okay.
And then William Wyrick.
Hello, I'm Robin Gerber. I live here in Ojai. $12 million is no small sum. It represents a major opportunity and a large challenge for city government to use it most effectively to help unhoused people in Ojai. Decisions made with this money affect all of us, of course, not just in the practical sense of where this housing ends up or how to provide a constellation of services to go along with it, but also in a moral sense of putting deeds to our words, to live the values often just expressed in this room. How often do members of the council and public speak of being a loving and caring community? But as my mother would say, words are cheap. Here we have a challenging project that will show whether we mean what we say. That is why council and staff must make this a valley-wide effort of government and citizens. Council, Mr. Harvey, Mr. Summers, as you saw this week, if you exclude the caring public, if you withhold information or mislead, unintentional as your actions may be, this project will not succeed. The debacle of the last 2 weeks should have convinced you of that. I have worked on enough public issues in Ojai over the last 15 years to promise you that the public must be part of the solution, or you will fail. Sure, there are people who will say they want this project, but will raise issues like needing more information to delay this into extinction. Yet they must be heard, and I am confident that they will be outnumbered by people who want to live our Ojai values and who have information and ideas that you need. Create a citizen advisory council. Do it tonight if possible. Do it tomorrow. Hold a special meeting. The risk of losing $12 million should be enough of an emergency to move quickly. I would hope every council member can vote in favor because the success of this project speaks to all the values you all have stated. Are we a place that welcomes those different from ourselves, whether by race or mental or physical disability or gender difference or economic circumstance? When we speak of Ojai as a loving place, do we just mean love for our family and friends? I hope not. This council must lead the way. Direct staff to allow meaningful involvement by the community. Demonstrate that we give more than lip service to our values. Invite the community to help make this grant a success, and everyone will benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have William Wyrick, then Sharon Mahari, and then Bob Kemper.
I'm going to start by starting again where Randy was cut off. Following is a summary of how such a committee would be formed and operate, or could be formed and operate. Again, I'm reading from what he couldn't get to. 2 council members, 3 liaisons, 2 from city staff, assistant city manager and planning director, and 1 member from Help of Ojai. 5 appointed members, 1 from each council member and an at-large from the mayor. 10 community members with working knowledge of homelessness, transit occupancy, real estate development and construction, and the ability to be open, transparent, and come to the table without an agenda. The 10 community members would apply and be vetted by the appointed members, liaison, and council members within 10 working days. The chair of the ad hoc committee would be elected by the 15 members, with the city council and the other 3 liaisons members acting as an advisory capacity, only with no voting rights. I'm going to make some separate comments now. I just wanted to get that into the record for what didn't have time for Randy to finish, at least reading that part. Someone else can do the rest of it. I got some other comments I want to make. Let's get beyond talking about fault and blame and talk about a reality that I think this council needs to acknowledge. There's a credibility problem in this community right now on this entire project. How do you address a credibility problem? And I would say part of the credibility problem is there has not been a structured community engagement from the beginning over the last literally 6 months. The engagement has been talk to this group, talk to this group, talk to this group in an informal way, hasn't been transparent, hasn't been noticed meetings, has not been the kind of thing of structured community engagement that, as Robin Gerber has to say, is required in order to make this project a success. Unfortunately, some of the rhetoric coming from our city government tends to be saying, well, there'll be opposition everywhere, basically throwing the whole community under the bus. This community wants to make this work right. And working right means a structured community engagement to respect the level of expertise that is in this community that seems to be not formally engaged. It's been delegated to staff, to your employees, and unfortunately being handled on not in a fully visible fashion. So I think what everybody wants is a full understanding of what the program goals are, what the grant parameters are, what the flexibilities are, how that implies site criteria, and assume good faith on the part of this community rather than assuming that there's just going to be knee-jerk. That's not what this community wants. It wants this done right with the full human capital depth of expertise and knowledge that we have in this community. And frankly, the right chair is Bill Miley. He has the experience. That's my personal recommendation, and no one can accuse.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have Sharon Mahari and then Bob Kemper.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Mahari. I've lived here in the city of Ojai for 22 years, but tonight I'm representing the Ojai Valley Board of Realtors. As we all watched the derailment of the project, the Dignity Moves Transitional Housing Project, last week, it occurred to us that we could help in ways that possibly no one else can. Bob Kemper, a well-known broker in town, called me yesterday to discuss how we could help keep this project on the right track by offering our services in the location, negotiation, and purchase of a good site for the project. We propose that we form a realtor task force under the auspices of the Board of Realtors and put our professional property sleuths on the job to find the right property. There are over 200 realtors in the Ojai Valley. I don't know if you realize that. And a good many of them belong to our board. We wholeheartedly support the Dignity Moves project. We want it to be the most successful one in the state of California and beyond. But we think that our personal and professional expertise could help get us there. So what we'd like to do is offer our services free of charge. There would be no charge for this. This is what we do every day. So what we would do in this case, we would consult with the city in locating suitable locations for consideration. We might even find a landowner who will donate their property for a great tax write-off. It's not out of the question. We'd like to reach out to property owners regarding their willingness to sell for this purpose. We know a lot of people. We know their real estate, and we know them personally and what their situations are. So there may be people out there that haven't come forward that we can bring to the table. We would reach out to those property owners regarding their willingness to sell for this purpose. And we'd bring the vetted locations back to the city manager and the council for selection. And then we'd use a certified appraiser to help determine the fair value of the identified property. We'd write and submit offers on the city's behalf, negotiate the transaction, and shepherd the deal through escrow. We'll be following up with a letter to you with a formal offer of this kind of community cooperation. And thank you for your time and attention. I think we could really help out and make this smoother and easier for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Next we have Bob Kemper.
Thank you. My name is Bob Kemper. I live in Miners Oaks, and although I've spent much of my 25 years in the Valley working on behalf of various nonprofits and many civic causes to benefit our community, often when I'm here to complain about something, what hasn't been done or what should have been done, but not tonight. I come in peace. And in fact, I'm amongst a group of other community members, some of whom you've already heard from, some of whom you will still hear from, who are offering to participate or recommending an ad hoc committee to hopefully be appointed by the city council either tonight or at a special meeting for the sole purpose of assisting with the location purchase, lease, construction, and development of essential services to ensure its ongoing and long-term viability. We have done as much research as is possible from available public information, including the grant application budget discussion with help of Ojai and other stakeholders. We are here not to go over missteps or talk about what could have been done or should have been done, but more about what we can do going forward. I think that's the point. We can ill afford to lose this $12 million. We can ill afford another delay or mistake that might make that risky. So I think getting the entire community involved is absolutely essential. There is power in this community, as you heard, and again, you'll hear more. We believe that the majority of the community will support a solution for our unhoused population, assuming they can have adequate input into the process. And I figure, and I think most will say that without such adequate input, the city will run into further roadblocks and lose this opportunity. We cannot afford to lose this opportunity. We do not want this to happen. I implore you to carefully listen to what is being offered to support the city's effort and to accept this offer for assistance. As Sharon Meharry just said, we have 200 realtors in this town, way too many, trust me. They know every single piece of property. They know owners who own properties that may be looking for tax write-offs. They know owners of properties, pocket listings in the vernacular, that you don't even know exist, that might be possible, without enlisting the realtors. And we're not going to make any money on this, so this is not a sales pitch. It is a sales pitch. Do the right thing, accept the help, let us help you, okay, so we can all win, all be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We appreciate your enthusiasm. If you could please hold your applause. Thank you. Next, we have Barbara Bowman and Jeff Kroll and Jeffrey Starkweather.
I'm happy to stand before you today, Barbara Bowman, because we all agree on something for a change. I mean, what a pleasure. I mean, I'm looking at all of you, and I'm not in disagreement with any of you because we all want the same thing. We want the unhoused community to be housed, and we want them to be housed as part of a community effort. And it's the only way it's going to work. We don't want them in sheds that don't have air coolers or heat or plumbing. We all want it to be done right, and we want to find a site that, if the community is involved, most people can get behind it. And I think if they see the community behind something, you can get everybody behind it. So we're all here with you. So I'm really here to really encourage you to create this ad hoc committee, let it go forward with your approval, that we can report to all of you, research all this information, and get this thing done right as a whole community. What a wonderful project for the community, particularly if everyone is in agreement. And I know every one of you want to get this done. So help us help you to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next, we have Jeff Kroll, then Jeffrey Starkweather, and then Bill Miley.
Hi, how are you? I'm Jeff Kroll with Shangri-La. We're also known as Ojai Cannabis Company. First off, I want to apologize because I know that most of the public comments and what's being discussed is certainly very, very important for the unhoused. But at the same time, I made a promise to some of the shareholders, owners of Shangri-La shares, that I update the community on some of our plans in the future. As many of you know, Paul Blatz was a big supporter at the time that he was mayor, and when we were issued our business license in 2009, it was no other city in California had issued a business license for delivery service. We also made I made a promise to the community and also to Paul Blatz and the supporters of Shangri-La that I would inform you as to, because I've been getting a lot of calls from why do we change our name? I'm so tired of answering these calls. The fact is, people had a hard time spelling Shangri-La in the internet, and it really hurt our web presence. Once we made the change to say where we are and what we do, we had a 30% increase in our web traffic. So I know that seems crazy, but that's the reality. And the fact is, I think we're at a turning point in this industry that we're about to have Schedule 3. We don't know when that's going to happen, but it will allow us to write off expenses. When the voters of Ojai voted 70% to approve recreational, they also approved a payment or fee structure. A lot of people, and I still have this, on our receipt it says what the 3% city tax is. I get asked all the time, are you able to write that off? And the answer is no. Until Schedule 3 happens, I'm not able to write off any expenses except the actual physical cost of what I buy from a distributor to put in my counter. Everything else is not a write-off for us. So it's been really a challenge for all three of us over the last, since 2018. And of course, you probably have heard it is a struggle. The industry is not doing well in the retail trade. I'm no different. So I just wanted to inform you that we did get our micro license. We got our micro license in February. It is so rare to be issued this license for manufacturing and distributing. One of my promises to Paul Blatz was to create.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey Starkweather, then Bill Miley, and then Larry Steingold.
Good evening. Been a while since I've been here. I didn't plan to speak, but since Mr. Haney wasn't able to complete his presentation, I'm going to read it. And I had nothing to do with putting this together, but I support it. So this is continuing on. The committee will have 45 working days to investigate, clarify, determine, and vet through open and transparent ad hoc meetings a comprehensive, recommendation to the City Council to move the City of Ojai forward with a permanent supportive transitional housing facility. The committee will facilitate development of a 30-unit, or could be less or more, supportive transitional housing facility within the City of Ojai, along with the permanent housing, provide non-congregate shelter through motel vouchers with wraparound services and housing navigation, facilitate street outreach service, which will provide assistance with documentation, assessments to help prioritize, this is the first time I read it, sorry, participants through the coordinated entry system for permanent housing opportunities, facilitate other related components of highly productive and caregiving facilities such as site procurement and development, securing proper facility management, securing contracts with entities whose sole purpose is to administer, enhance community outreach, incorporate the lived experience of the homeless in the planning and design of the site and operations, coordinate outreach and wraparound services provided by the County of Ventura, establish partnerships with the City of Ojai, Help of Ojai, Continuum of Care, homeless management information system, and the coordinated entry system for pathway, that's a bureaucratic number, pathway for permanent housing, review long-term facility management of traditional facilities, cost, revenue required, and along with revenue streams, and develop future needs and involvement in the county. So I just finished it. I just wanted to make one comment based on what I read in the newspaper. And Mr. Harvey was describing the 4 criteria, which I guess those are required by state law. But I was a little bit uneasy with the way he described number 4, which was concern about NIMBYs being against it. I think we need to be very careful with those words. I think when you're looking at a site, you need to describe it in detail, what the design will be to the neighbors, how it's going to operate, the nature of who's going to live there, the on-site services, the supervision provided, and, of course, the neighbors and the residents of the city should have an opportunity for input. Now, and ask questions. When that's done and all the questions have been answered.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Next, we have Bill Miley, and then we have Larry Steingold.
Hello. Hello. My family and I have lived in this valley, in this city, for 56 years. Here are some questions about the grant program for homeless encampment at City Hall. They can't be answered because it's not on the agenda. So they're really addressed to our city manager, Mr. Harvey. 1. Are the homes or units transitional or permanent? 2. Are the Dignity Moves buildings, are they movable, and will the city ever own them? 3. Are the Dignity Moves buildings, are they described as sheds, cabins, small houses, tiny houses, or what? 4. How can a tiny shelter house without a toilet, without a sink, without a mini kitchen be described as a permanent structure? 5. Why is Dignity Moves getting $10 million out of the $12 million grant? 6. How much money will Help of Ojai get to provide casework for all 30 residents? 7. How much money will the city of Ojai get to do all the daily service work to keep the village clean and safe? How much will the sheriff get to provide security? 9. How many residents will be transitioned to more suitable housing as part of the rehab effort? 10. How will aberrant behavior on the part of one or more residents be handled? And last, what criteria will be used to screen potential residents to assure they will be suitable for the village? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have Larry Steingold.
Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey, can I give you this list, please? These are the list of get this off your plate and give it to a committee of people in Ojai, please, because there's a lot of people here. We need this, okay? We need it for the 40 or 45 people there. The question I have is Mr. Gaddis said 90 people. That's 30 every 4 months. Well, if we have only 45 here, are we going to become a catchment area? Are they going to be bringing in homeless to go into the transition centers so they can fill an empty slot? But nice to know. Okay, so, but to me, it's get it off your plate. Do what Ron Haney, Jeff Starkweather, for a change, I'm on the same page with him. Okay, and everybody else. We need this, just do it right. We're all NIMBYs to some extent. We're all NIMBY about something, right? I don't want a dog kennel next to my house. I'm a NIMBY about dog kennels. Okay, we're all NIMBYs, so that's a misnomer, and I think that's wrong. Can you people institute a budget committee tonight to be reconstituted? It hasn't been eliminated. Just put out a call for people to help you with the budget tonight, please. I mean, we're all here. There are a lot of people in town. Help you get off the plate, move it along. Other than that, I think the roads are getting paved, even though it's taking longer than they should. Stripes are getting painted. And did they do a street study for the stop signs? Did we have a study? Because as Mr. Whitman said last year, I believe, we need a study for all traffic because we don't want to be liable. Great. Did we have a study for the stop signs? They went up all the time because when I asked Chief Freihoff about stop signs, he said, oh, there haven't been enough deaths or what fatalities or accidents on Pleasant and Drown to get stop signs. Well, why'd we get stop signs? There had to be a demand. Can we now get speed bumps all over the city as a test? Take $100,000, put speed bumps everywhere, and where they work, and where they don't work, but do something. Stop signs, you did something. Please. We talk about the traffic, we talk about parking, we talk about speeding, and that's all it is talking. Is the police officer going to be 24/7? Okay, that's a nice thing. If he is, for $300,000, we should get 24/7. Are we putting cameras up in the arcade for the young men and young ladies who are riding on electric bikes in the arcade? You want to ride on the street, you want to do wheelies down the middle of the road, fine. Go ahead, be a hood ornament. Okay, but let's do something in the arcade, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
One more card in-house, Mayor Devora Cutler. And we do have a raised hand on Zoom.
Thank you, esteemed committee. I appreciate all the work that you do to make our home a better place and everything that you've contributed in your lifetimes. I am a recent transplant from Los Angeles to Ojai, teacher USC, 15 years. One of my wonderful, most favorite jobs was working as a public affairs specialist. And I worked with the unhoused community and worked in development of programs that were successful and monitored what was unsuccessful. One thing that I do want to say that is super important, both that happened with me as a teacher at USC and also working with that particular community, is that there would be times, as a teacher, for instance, where somebody would go off their meds. And it was very hard to monitor. So speaking to our gentleman back here about, criteria, even if you have a criteria, there does need to be constant monitoring of behavioral changes, life attitudes. We're not going to go as deep as DNA. I'm just saying that it's super important, and I'm sure you're aware of this, just to, rather than speed up the process or slow the process, but have some sort of criteria checklist where you are prioritizing mental health and the well-being of the community as it intersects with the mental health. Now, people could say, hey, you're crazy sane, Devo. We all are debatably challenged, especially post-pandemic. But I especially think we need to have the caregiving and the money set aside for not just help of Ojai or people or security, but just people to really, like the VA does, help people improve through new technology. And we might even be able to raise some money if people are willing to be part of experimental programs with either medication or behavior mod. For instance, tapping, or there's a lot of other technologies that are new out here that have been proven to actually affect and impact improvement and more well-being. Thank you for listening. I know I'm just harping on the same point, but it's about criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Devora. We have one comment online.
Yes, Mayor, we have a raised hand from Starchild. Starchild, you have the floor.
Thank you. I wanted to say thanks to Ben Harvey for including the community find a location for the unhoused encampment. It seems like everywhere we look, there are perceived negative impacts from living next to the encampment or having a business next to the encampment. I do agree that we shouldn't call these people NIMBYs. They're concerned for their family, they're concerned for their business, sometimes they're concerned for their safety. And to be truthful, even the city has some of this sentiment that they wouldn't like the encampment being on City Hall property, that it's a working campus and that it would somehow disrupt operations. I don't think any neighborhood, any neighbors, any business owners in Ojai deserve the negative impacts of living next to an encampment, but I do think the city has to take some responsibility. The city has a restrictive housing policy that's contributed to the unhoused crisis. And I think if there's going to be an unhoused encampment anywhere, it should be in City Hall so that the Planning Commission and City Council and the city manager can be reminded every day that when the city has a policy that restricts affordable housing, restricts market rate housing, makes it so that there's not enough housing for everybody who lives here, that people become unhoused. And so that's what I wanted to say tonight.
Thank you, Starchild. That's
No
it.
more raised hands, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve, but I'd like to pull item G.
G, okay. Is there a motion? There's a motion to approve everything. G, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Okay, Councilmember Francina.
We're just moving right along here.
Yeah.
Okay. Item G is a request for services for Ventura County Animal Services. And as most of you know, I've served on the Animal Services Commission since 2016. And I just want to assure the public that's following the saga of, we've been seeking a new director for quite a long time, that the city manager and I are going to meet with the assistant CEO, Mike Pettit, to address our concerns. And so that for the last 8 years, I'm in touch with most of the volunteers and rescue groups. And I again want to assure them that even though we're going to approve the level of service, the funding and all of that, is that for me? No. Okay. Okay. Let me gather my thoughts here. I'm going to vote to approve the request for services, but at the same time, I'm going to continue to address the concerns, and also with the understanding that even if there's questionable as to whether Ojai is paying too much for our share, the way I see it, what happens in Oxnard impacts all of Ventura County, including Ojai. So you cannot address, you have to look at the whole county when addressing the terrible problem we right now have of too many animals that are unwanted. We're living at a time when there are thousands of adoptable, healthy animals being killed. We call it euthanasia, but euthanasia is mercy killing, and this is actually killing animals that become deranged from staying in the shelter too long. The public has to understand the magnitude of the problem, and the only way we can never have shelters big enough, we can never fund enough. The only way to solve the problem is spaying and neutering. And I'm proud that the city of Ojai is one of the few cities in the county that actually has adopted a spay and neuter ordinance. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you,
Thank you
Councilmember.
for listening.
So we need a motion to approve G.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if I could, through the mayor, support Councilmember Francina in her comments. And while I also will support the funding, our funding level, I also have deep concerns and am appreciative that both of you are, with Mike Pettit, are working towards that. There are great concerns, and I know that you know them and that you're working forward on them. And at some point, I'd love an update on the new director at your convenience.
I'll do one at the end of the meeting when we go around.
That would be great.
The council member updates.
Thank you.
All right, would you like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve item consent calendar item G.
Okay, and a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Francina, taking care of the animals. We will move on to discussion. So let's move on to item number 2. What's so funny? There she is. Hello, Ms. Palmer. Item number 2, award of public works contract to Granite Construction Company and award of professional services agreement to TransTech Engineers Incorporated for the ATP. So you are here for our staff report. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So I am here tonight to ask the City Council to award a construction contract to Granite Construction and a construction management agreement to TransTech for the construction of our ATP project. We are there. So we designed the project, began design on the project in 2019. Here we are, 5 years later, and we're there. So I have just a couple of slides. I just wanted to show you and also whoever's watching just what we're talking about. So we're talking about only phase 1, so that's Maricopa Highway, and that's from 5 Points to just west of Vaughn's. So here is the area we're talking about. So the project includes 2 Class 1 bike lanes on the south side of Maricopa Highway and a Class 2 on the north side, and handicap ramps and flashing beacons for pedestrian safety. So we're here. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. We've got tonight with us, we have Keith Lanou, Keith Wave. He's with Avant Garde. And then we have Heather Miller, Heather Wave, with VCTC. So they have been with the project a lot longer than I have. I'm very familiar with the project. I've been around for a lot of it, as we all have. So I just wanted to show a couple of renderings of what it's going to look like in case you haven't seen it lately. So this is the south side. So this is right in front of Nordhoff. And we've got the bike lanes in both directions. And we've got a nice crossing, some nice ramps, and we'll be creating a lot of safety features there. So I can answer questions. If I can't, Keith or Heather can. So we're open for questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council?
Yes. I guess this is a question. We're gonna have discussion, right? I'll wait for discussion. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. Palmer. We will move on to public comment then. We have William Wyrick.
Thank you. Back when I was another part of my life managing capital projects for a public agency, university, we actually had a schedule, a percentage schedule for construction management services that was part of our policies. And I actually got on the internet today and looked at some other universities and their percentages for construction management services. And the percentages back in the day when I was there started at around 8 or 9% for smaller projects and then declined for bigger projects below that. I checked some other universities just because that was something I knew to look up. Hasn't changed. This construction management services and inspection services contract is 15.8% in terms of authorized expenditures. I have never seen anything that high. I was just involved in a private construction project. The construction management services was 3%, and everyone was quite happy. I wondered why this was the case, and I happened to notice that part of the construction management services is public relations, which I found interesting. We recently upgraded the public works position to a full-time position. Obviously, we have a city manager, deputy city manager. Perhaps that explains why the percentage seems to be at the absolute high end of what you normally see for this kind of thing, based on the references that I cited. The other thing I want to just mention really quickly is it's interesting that we have for phase 1, who knows about phase 2, additional $454,000 in general fund money to complete phase 1. At one point, I want to remind this council that the council guidelines for this project back in the day, years ago, were 1, designed to stay within the budget for phase 1 and phase 2, have the high-risk pedestrian crossings that are now in phase 2 and with no particular guidelines for when that might happen, were a priority over phase 1 because of the risk to pedestrians in the high-density areas. And then, it just seemed like, those were what the guidelines were in terms of priorities, which obviously this council is your right to do so, to change those priorities. Change that parameter of design within budget, not use general fund money. That was part of our guidelines that were passed years ago unanimously by the council. So this council's taken a different path on this project, and I just wanted to say for the record for the community to highlight those differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments online, Weston?
No raised hands on Zoom for item 2, Mayor.
Okay, let's move on to discussion. Who would like to begin?
I'll
Councilmember Francina?
Yeah. I don't really have a specific question on on the phase, on the matter at hand, but it's related. And we've brought it up many times. We do not need Caltrans permission to post a sign at the Y intersection. So instead of it saying bike trail ends or bike lane ends, it points people to the bike trail. You know what I'm talking about? Because newcomers may not realize it, and then they end up on the highway. We don't need their permission. I don't know what this council needs to do to make that sign happen, because it's been asked for 4 years. Not under your watch, of course.
Mayor, would you like me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Yes, the Public Works council member, the Public Works Director and I have discussed this as part of the project. We envision what we would call a few field modifications, and that would be one of them. That's de minimis, that's logical, and that will be very apparent once the project is complete. And you're right, because I ride the path and I know exactly what you're talking about. Unless you specifically know, you might turn onto the highway instead of just simply crossing the street and accessing the Ojai Valley Trail. So that is part of what we'd like to do. And
thank you for that assurance.
Yeah, we think that that's, again, like I said, de minimis, and that's something that Caltrans will understand that we can address with them.
Okay, and I have a related question. At the other end of the project, which is the Cuyama-El Roblar intersection, it also says bike lane ends, okay? And seasoned cyclists know that they can go up the highway and just be on the side. And what I've noticed in City of Ventura, and they've won some awards for their infrastructure, is that when the bike lane ends, there's signage that says bicycles, share the road. Not only that, some places say bicycles may use full lane. I don't know that it applies to the highway, but it definitely should apply to El Roblar. So,
towards Miners Oaks.
Yeah, towards Miners Oaks, so that motorists, when they're slowed down, don't think that the bicycle doesn't have a right to be there. They're not some nuisance that that they have to dodge. They can use, and that's going to come up on Ojai Avenue too, because we're not at this point in time. There's no plan for dedicated. So I just want to request that we look into similar signage that says that indicates that bicycles may use full lane when the bike lane ends.
And once the project is underway and constructed, it will become obvious where this signage needs to go and what it needs to say. Because obviously we're trying to, on the east side, we're trying to direct people across the highway to get onto the bike path, and likewise on the other end. Yeah. So we will be working with, the county on a Roblar side, and then Caltrans on the other side.
Okay. Now, does this include, is part of this discussion, the parking that's going on the Land Conservancy Catholic Church? No, it's not part of this discussion. Okay, so then also probably not part of this discussion is the secret bike trail that goes into Miners Oaks. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll save that for those that need to know about it. Okay. It's a wonderful secret. It's a wonderful, wonderful secret, because El Roblar, there's going to be, we have to do that. Okay, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
So first of all, I want to know more about the secret trail.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
But I have a great I really like TransTech. I met them at their booth. I met some of the principals there at the booth during the California League of Cities conference, and we had great conversations. And they had the best. They gave away coffee, and that was a great idea. So that's what drew me in, and I ended up in conversations with them about all the different ways that they incorporate new technology into the way they work. And so I feel really good about who we've chosen to go with. I do have Mr. Wyrick's comment brought up questions that I had not considered about the public relations, and also about the price. Is there any negotiation room for the price, or can you talk a little bit about and clarify for me what he talked about?
Sure. So for professional services, we we issue an RFP, a request for proposals. It's unlike the contracting side, which is the construction portion, which is a sealed bid. We open it at this specific time, they're sealed, we open it, this guy over here stamps it, and we open them. Professional services are different. It's a little bit like a resume. They're providing us with the qualifications of staff, their methodology on the project. They're showing us what their understanding of the project is. So it's not necessarily cost-based, like on the construction element of the construction phase. We are required by state law to give this contract and award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. We have a different criteria for professional services. And an example would be hiring a structural engineer. We may need a retaining wall designed, and a bridge designer comes and asks us to do the job. That's an overkill. We don't need to do that. This particular project, there's a couple of areas of uniqueness to this project, and one is that we have got outside funding. So there's a lot of requirements for reporting for state and federal funding that we need a level of expertise. We really, really do. Because our funding is in jeopardy if we don't use the proper forms at the proper time for the proper phase, all of this stuff. So not in the staff report, but for your information, we got 3 proposals, and they ranged from 2 of them at about $400,000 and a third at $725,000, which is absurd, or so we thought. But so, and the resume, if you will, for TransTech rose to the surface of being the best candidate for us. So it's not unusual for a high-profile project like this to have a phase of, public outreach, etc. We are going to get so many phone calls on this project when it is underway, as we did when we created the demonstration project, as you will probably remember. So as soon as we break ground, actually probably tomorrow, if you award this tonight, we'll probably start getting calls tomorrow. And so, and yes, we will. So a 10 to, and we also have the second element of this that makes it a little more complicated, again, is the funding source. If it were local funding, meaning the city was funding the entire project with general fund money, it's our money, and we don't have to report it the way that the state and feds tell us to report it. So there's a couple of pieces to this project that make it a little bit more complicated than others. So, and a 10 to 15% is not, it's right in the ballpark of what we would expect to a project of this magnitude and this visibility and this level of complexity. The work itself isn't necessarily complex, but it is on state highway. It's a state highway, and it's highly visible. So,
well, I have to say that I feel I trust you. I know that you cover all of your bases, but I feel more comfortable voting yes on this, knowing that we did that this was in alignment with other bids and actually less than the $725,000 one. Absolutely. That this is kind of the going rate for this sort of project, and like you said, the publicity and the outreach that's needed for it. So thank you.
Welcome.
Councilman or Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just to follow up on what was just asked, to clarify the 3% figure that was thrown out. Your opinion and your experience is that it's more like a 10 or 15% factor as opposed to a 3% factor.
Absolutely. On our annual paving, we expect 10 to 15% for the design and 10 to 15% for the soft costs. Not unusual at all.
Okay.
I mean, prices have gone up significantly on professional services and contract services, we know.
And then I do have one other question, and I know you've kind of covered this, but I'm going to be a little more specific. I'm not saying that when we eventually get phase 2, that I'm going to vote no, but I want to leave open the opportunity to say, no, we shouldn't authorize these further expenditures Is there anything built into this that's going to, like, drag us down that path? Or have we really severed it so that we're only approving phase one and we're not, like, pushing ourselves down towards phase two?
We are not pushing ourselves to phase two. This is standalone. This project was split into two phases a year and a half ago, I don't know, a while back. And we are not, this is not just a slow roll into phase two. We will be bringing that item back to you for this same discussion if and when we choose to move forward with phase two. And phase two may be scaled down from what we've seen or re-scoped or something from what you've seen in the past.
And I'll just making my final comment. I know this, even phase one, has been kind of a controversial issue for the community, and I'm impressed that it greatly improves safety, particularly for high school bicyclists, now junior high school bicyclists. And I think it's, I'll be supporting it on that basis.
And I'd like to add one more thing, something that everybody in the community should probably know, and you as well. This is a long project. This is a longer project than we have ever constructed in the city here. So the contract documents state that it's 120 working days. So that's 6 months of time, and that's not taking into account potential weather problems when we get into the rainy season. And we're also going to be, we will be kicking this off tomorrow if this gets approved tonight, and talking about a schedule to work around, Ranger Roundup, to work around anything that's going on at the high school, first day of school, all the, the churches and the daycare centers that are up on Church. So this will be a very long project. So we're kind of in it for the long haul.
Councilmember?
Yeah, so I've been very proud to say that all the costs were covered by the grant. So when anyone ever said money, I said, well, all the costs are covered by the grant, and we will determine phase two costs as we go. But here we are. So we're about $500,000 over. And, I just assume that that's the cost of doing business. Prices have gone up and things like that. But I just wanted to point out that I no longer am going to be able to say that with pride. And
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. It's quite all right. I mean, I really do think it's just what it is. And I wanted to also note that yesterday when I was at Nordhoff, there were 6 kids. The youngest looked about 8, who were on e-bikes screaming through the parking lot, doing wheelies. And we're going to have to come to grips with that as we build out this ATP. And the parent was there with the bikes in the back of their truck. And I swear to God, one kid could not have been over 6. So it was frightening, actually. But they were wheelie, man, all the way around. So I think that's going to come up. So thank you very much for the work that you've done on this. I think we're ready to go. So I would make a motion.
Can I answer just?
Yeah, please.
Make one more statement. So I did discover over the course of this whole process that a portion of the funding that we received was not eligible for this contract because a portion of it is specifically earmarked for right-of-way. We didn't have any right-of-way issues on phase one. We will on phase two.
So it's kind of borrowing. I mean, we'll have that 400, that money will be usable in phase two. Or we can talk about it.
And I cannot say that definitively,
right?
Because I don't know what the scope's going to be.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you.
So,
Councilmember Rule, would you like to go ahead and make a motion?
Can I still ask a question?
Yeah. We I'll make a motion that we approve this item and the costs and the contracts.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and I would just like to say a big thank you to our Public Works Director, Ms. Palmer. We really appreciate you jumping in. It has been a long haul. Councilmember Francina probably knows the best. And having observed it for the last 4 years, we're lucky to have you and move forward. And the bottom line is safety and to keep bikes away from cars. So we have a plan where that's happening, and really looking forward to getting going. So thank you. Councilwoman?
The roots of
Yeah.
this project are actually due to Caltrans recommendations back in 2012, and then a former public works director picked it up in 2015 before I was elected. So a lot of history there. But my other question is, I want to assure the public that there's going to be a sidewalk in front of the Ben Franklin, that little shopping center with the restaurant and the dry cleaner and the, the bank. That's the sidewalk is part of the project. Correct?
Yes.
Where currently the
Just
the parking lot goes right to the street, and now we're going to have a site.
Yeah.
After 20 years.
Yep.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Wow. Great. All right. Well, let's have the roll call, please, Mr. City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor. We have a motion by Councilmember Rule with a second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitman to proceed to approve item 2 recommendations as stated. Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Yes.
Councilmember Rule.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to public communications remainder. I believe there might be one comment in the box.
None for
Oh.
general public comment and no raised hands right now, Mayor, on
Okay.
Zoom.
All right. Okay, well, we will move on to item number 3, the budget study session 3, proposed fiscal year 2024-25 overview. And we have a staff report.
Yes, Mayor. Joining me this evening will be our finance director. She is joining us remote, but here she is on the screen. Thank you, Ms. Greer. So we are returning to you this evening with a budget we would like for you to consider adopting. As you may recall, at your last meeting, we came forward, presented the budget. Council made a number of suggested revisions. Also, since the time that you had that budget meeting, we received some final contract amounts and some other observations that required some additional adjustments. And so Ms. Greer will be going through that with you so you see the list of changes. Notably within that list, Council asked for a summary of the climate-related items within the budget. That's within the presentation. It's also within the budget itself in a modified portion of the city manager budget transmittal. Again, I want to thank not only Ms. Greer, but the assistant city manager for all the work in the last couple of weeks to really finalize everything. They did a lot of work, a lot of effort to get there. Couple items related to the budget that you're not considering tonight, but I do want to make you very aware of. We plan on coming back to you following the adoption of the budget with 3 items. One, we'd like to propose a new city reserve policy. You're currently with a policy that requires 50% of general fund expenditures. As you know from our last meeting, we're at a budget that has 100% of your general fund expenditures, and we'd like to formalize that in a revised policy. In that draft policy that we will be bringing to you, we'd also like to have layers within that so that if for strategic reasons the council needed to access that for, say, matching funds for a grant, et cetera, you would have some discretion and flexibility in doing so. So that will be forthcoming. The other policy we would like to bring forward, just in recognition of council interest and community interest, is a budget climate policy. There's been a lot of concern about making sure that we're spending an appropriate amount on climate related activities and projects and expenditures. The challenge that we, your staff, have is we don't have any granularity there. How much? What's our target? What are we trying to do? Is it a dollar amount? Is it a percentage? Is it a reduction? Is it all of the above? So we'd like to create a policy like that. We think that will be very, very helpful next year, and then everyone will know what we're shooting for, because right now we don't really know that. And then lastly, as has been spoken about, you have a delta of unprogrammed general fund monies above your 100% general fund expenditure amount which we'd like to talk to you about how you would like to invest and spend that money if you want to. Certainly there are a number of items you could spend it on that are very deserving. We want to have a discussion about that. So again, that will be coming later. So we're not asking you to do anything on those items tonight. I just want to make it clear that's not on the agenda. That's not what we're doing. So with that, Ms. Greer, do you want to bring forward your presentation and we can go through this?
Yes, please. James, can you bring it up, please? All right, so good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Honorable Council Member, residents, and staff. My name is Pam Greer, Finance Director of City of Ojai. I do want to extend a special thanks to James Hahn and Carl for the additional research that they made to ensure that what we want to purchase as far as the emission reduction and climate mitigation tools and equipment are available. So those are part of the changes that we made because we did get confirmation that it's available. And then, of course, thank you, Ben, for your support and your guidance for being the captain of our ship. Next slide, please. So tonight it's going to be a very quick presentation. I'm not going to go into how we came to the budget, just what changed. So for the general fund, you see that the sheriff budget did increase by a net of $25,000. This is for the body worn camera and tasers that they would like to purchase. Animal license services, the contract came in June 12th, so we increased it by $26,490. CDD, they also received a revised contract after the June 11th study session by $1,560. HPC budget got increased by $6,000, so for a total of $20,000. And recreation contract, he received all the recreation manager received confirmation, so that line item increased by $145,000. And then funding for Ojai Day, I did wanted to point it out. It is in the budget book. I think there's a total of 61,000, but 31,000 particularly for supplies and needed materials. So you may ask, what revenue lines did we adjust to make sure that we provide you with a balanced budget? We did not adjust any revenue lines because, again, we're trying to live within our means and be conservative. So what we did do is reduce the amount that's transferred out to the equipment replacement fund by $204,000. That is the net of all the changes. This is general fund. Next slide, please. So with the revision, the adjustment in the prior slide, general fund is still being proposed to you at 16.3 million in revenues and expenditure, and with a estimated ending fund balance of 20.7 million. As Ben mentioned, the column 7 to the right there, you see that with we're proposing a 100% reserve requirement. That would be exactly your expenditure budget at 16.3, leaving you an unallocated, unreserved fund balance to be redesignated at 3.4 million. And to reiterate what Ben mentioned earlier, we will come back to you with a fund balance reserve policy and a proposed budget for climate related policy after we hear from you and the resident. Next slide, please. So some other modifications. Oh, this particular one here is a result of a inspection or a phone call that our Public Works Director received. Maybe Lindy can expand on this. My understanding is there's a drain that needs to be repaired sooner than later. And so 250,000 is the estimate, with the funding source coming from Measure C. So Measure C will be adjusted to accommodate for this needed repair. Lindy, would you like to add any comments in regards to this particular new line item?
I can wait for the questions, Pam. You can just go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, for the equipment replacement fund, so these are the changes. The Bobcat front loader was estimated at $10,000, but then we found that there's a cleaner version, but diesel, I believe it was a diesel Bobcat front loader that, however, the cost is going to increase to $60,000, so there's $50,000 increase for this particular equipment replacement fund. And then the F-250, the electric pickup truck, we found that it's available, or they have it in electrical version. So the cost for that will be $79,800, and then the other F-150 that we originally budgeted was at $53,000, but based on what we purchased this current year, $75,000 is more accurate. Number 4 there, the electric passenger van for recreation. I believe the consultant who we looked at the fleet recommended that we replace this van sooner than later. And so the estimated cost there from a state website, I believe, is at $89,800. And the funding source to your right there, I didn't mention, will be from Measure C. Number 5, a Tesla electric wall charger coming in at $51,400. And then other various items, the electric backup batteries, EV charger stations, and other non-electric tools coming out to a net of $45,780. So the total change, so I should have described this one a little bit. It's the total for both the CIP fund, the 250 that you saw in the prior slide, and this particular fund, 33, the equipment replacement fund. So 513,600 will come out of the Measure C fund, and then 75,180 will be adjusted for the equipment replacement fund. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the adjustment in Measure C. And then the amount, in summary, how much we're spending on each type of work. This slide was shown at the second budget study session without the dollar amount tied to it, so that you can see how much we're spending on each line item, and the total that Measure C will be supporting. So with that, the estimated ending fund balance for Measure C at the end of fiscal year 24-25, this next fiscal year, will be about $4.8 million. So next slide, please. All right, so this is a partial list of the climate mitigation plan expenses. The solar panel at the Martin Gym, 270, City Hall. So any climate related project we have right now, I shouldn't say any, just this particular category. The top 3 line is 525,000. So yeah, I just realized I should have put the page number of the budget book. That would be helpful. But most of them starts in section I of the proposed budget book, and it should be about page 173 to 183. It's a combination of items in the CIP fund, Fund 31, and the equipment replacement fund, Fund 33. So charging stations, battery, and electrification of system gives you a total of 117,600. So part of this was already in the first or the second budget study session, and then some are what I had mentioned in the earlier slide. So next page, please. So this is the remainder of the climate mitigation planned expenses. The electrical equipment replacement totals 500,000. And you can see on the list there what else we're planning to buy. And then the vehicle replacement below there totals 322,600 for a total of 1.465 million. And next slide, please. At the last study session, the second study session, someone, a resident mentioned, how did we come up with the total all funds budget? So this is a summary by fund, the revenues and use of fund balance and the expenditure to come up with the revised total, which is pretty close to what we had originally. So revenue is estimated at 53.7 million, plus the use of fund balance due to the amount of work that we plan to do this next fiscal year. And the 56.2 million is the sum of 53 point, the revenue column and the use of fund balance column, with a total expenditure of 55.7 million. Again, this is all funds. And with that, next slide, please. That ends my presentation, so we are ready for questions.
Thank you very much, Pam. Much appreciated. Any questions from council?
May I? Yeah. So as far as climate mitigation goes, there could be specific projects that fall under that category, but in reality, every project should be looked at as either increasing our footprint or lessening it. And we can justify putting any trolley, public transportation projects, pedestrian and bike safety projects. All of that is climate mitigation. And, you know, so if someone says we're not spending enough, if we add it all up, it's probably pretty good.
And you just awarded about $4 million worth of climate mitigation in the ATP project.
See, yeah.
So that would be added to all of these other.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, thank you.
Projects.
Yeah, yeah.
However, really quickly, if
Okay.
I may, on that topic,
Okay.
that is kind of precisely why we would like to develop a policy, because, as you pointed out, it means different things to different people. And so to make sure we're aligned as to what we're doing and why, what the requirements are, all that should be put into a climate budget policy so it's very clear that the targets are being met or not met.
I mean, even the coffee we buy should come from, you know, some regenerative agriculture source. You know, if we're going to lead by example, we can get pretty detailed. So, okay, now I have another question. What happens to, are we replacing perfectly good equipment, but it's gas powered with electric equipment? What happens to all that old equipment?
Most of our fleet is aging.
Aging, okay.
Very, very old. We have public works maintenance workers driving 2,000 vehicles, year 2000.
Okay.
So they're well beyond their useful life. So as we transition, we will be transitioning to all electric.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're seeing here.
Yes, thank you. That's what I want to know.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lindy, and thank you, Pam, for your great work.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions, and I know that there's that part of my question, the answer is probably going to be from you. We need a climate policy, but I want to ask these questions anyway, because I think there might be some possibilities for adding more for the environment, and I'm not just talking about ways to reduce emissions. I'm also talking about like planting native trees and and things like that. First of all, it's we all received a public communication from Phil White about the aging HVAC systems in our city buildings, and and I'm also aware that along with making any changes to switching out those appliances, that it would actually save us significant money in our in our costs, in our energy costs. And so have we looked at what we can do to make those, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So I'd like to take that question. What I'd like to recommend is that we go out for an RFP for an energy management plan, because we thanks to Mr. White, we now have a very comprehensive inventory of exactly what the equipment is and age and so forth. But what needs to be better understood is what is a logical replacement, what is the investment, what is the impact on the facility in doing that. Better than that, though, would be, like I said, some type of comprehensive energy management policy. There are a number of vendors out there that can provide that service. It's a third party. They'd come in and they could do that. They could pair your needs also with available grants, and they could put it out over a number of years so that it's all scheduled, it's all logical, and you're moving forward. You're with a target either of a lower energy bill or a reduced greenhouse gas emission component, or both. But that'd be what I would like to do. I think that would be logical, and that's how we could get to where I think we need to be.
Okay, and if we approved this budget tonight, we would have the opportunity, once we have that analysis, to come back and revise this aspect of the budget.
So the budget is a living document, and you always have the opportunity to amend it. And over the year, we will probably come back, beside the mid-year point, probably other occasions when a need arises and we have to amend the budget. Yes, it's never final. You always have the ability to change it.
Thank you, because that seems like a no-brainer. One other question I had, and that is, it's also my understanding that under Measure C funding, that would include things like tree planting, planting native trees for fire safety, and I know that we have a plan moving forward for trees that you brought with the CIP. But I was wondering if there's any way that we could perhaps cut from or postpone expenses right now to add more to the budget this year, knowing that when we're talking about climate, it's a long game. That if we plant, we need to plant trees now in order to have shade for the temperatures that are and for the fire and for all of the challenges that we have coming down the road.
So the council has the ability to modify the budget however they choose. That is fully your authority. You could have your cake and eat it too. You could make the proposed expenditures and you could come back. Remember, you've got a $3.4 million unprogrammed surplus. We could, in addition to the anticipated, tree work that we have in the budget, we'd welcome a proposal to do a lot more. We agree that's a worthwhile activity, but we need a little granularity to that. And with any proposal to plant more trees, of course, the really important part is making sure they're maintained, making sure that either by contract or by an additional resource, you're able to do that. And also planting them logically, right? Not just, first of all, we'd be interested primarily, probably exclusively in natives, planting them in clusters so that you're not leaving, single trees to try to fend for themselves. Planting them in areas where maybe we could be removing asphalt and putting in trees instead. We could do a demonstration area as part of that. It could be very exciting. You also have an 8-acre campus here that you've done a lot of restoration work on, but there's a lot more that could be done. So I think that would be a very worthwhile consideration for that delta that you have. Yeah. But again, we'd want some granularity with some proposals to talk about that. We don't have that with us tonight.
Can I ask one more question? So I want just a little bit more information about that $3.4 million that we're talking about. First of all, is it is it guaranteed? Is that money that the state could potentially withhold from us because of budget deficits?
No, it's our funding.
Okay.
It's in your balance, and it's not when we say it's unprogrammed, it has no use right now. It's not that it's not doing something, it's earning a nominal amount of interest, but it's basically you have a super reserve at this point because of that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. So just to clarify, staff is going to come back with an item related to this. We don't have to start sending you our ideas.
Could you certainly could, and we take policy direction from you, but rather than just having a melee free for all, we've heard from a lot of you individually and together on some things that you're interested in, and we'd like to kind of come back with a menu. Here's what we've heard. Here's some projected costs.
Okay.
Here's how you could spend that money.
Okay.
Here's how you could not spend that money.
Okay.
Right.
It's
but
pretty exciting, actually.
It
when I
is
start
very
thinking
exciting.
about it.
This is not normally the type of discussion that you have at local government. That you've got an extra $3 million that you might want to invest in your community. It's super exciting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to public comment. First,
But I have a couple of questions. There was a line item put up earlier about a sewer drainage repair, and I know you've talked to us in the past about paving and the need to do an assessment of our capacity for stormwater drainage so that we can properly design curb and gutter. Are those items the same, or is that different?
So the item that Pam discussed tonight, the 250,000, is separate and apart from that. I have discussed the need, and you see it in your budget this year, the proposed budget. We have $100,000 for a master drainage study. Our storm drain system in Ojai is about 60 years old, and we have not done an analysis or any studies looking at the capacity, looking at the condition of the pipes. What we're finding, and I did discuss this before, my fear is that we're barely staying ahead of catastrophic storm drain failures. We are seeing some storm drain failures now. The one that we were talking about, this one that came to the budget late, we have a sinkhole because we've taken pictures of the interior of the storm drain and it's gone. So the earth is sinking and we need to fix it. So we may have the ability to line it and not do a full excavation, but we're not sure yet because this has just come to light. So your question regarding the paving, ideally what we would like to do is repair the storm drains that lie beneath the ground before we put new paving on. We're not there yet, but I would hope to get there eventually. We're still moving forward with all of our paving because our streets are in such poor condition that we have to do something. So we may end up having to trench. We may be able to line. There's a couple of different ways of repairing these storm drains based on the condition, which we don't know yet.
Okay, thanks.
move on to public comment. First, we have Brian Akins, then Sharon Aliski, and then Allison Stillman.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here again tonight. I have, as I always do, I come with two hats on. I chose to go on the one most recently mentioned at the moment, and that is the, as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. I am grateful to Ms. Greer, grateful to city management, grateful to the council for increasing the budget for the Historic Preservation Commission up to the $20,000 that was requested. Grateful for the support that we got in the last meeting that will enable us to have the information that we need that's up to date. Again, that was recommended that be updated every 5 years and been updated in 11 years. So, and we did get that quote from Mitch Stone from San Buenaventura Research Associates. I'm looking at the acronym. trying to read it. So again, thank you for that. Now I'll put the hat on that's just a little bit more fun, and that is the support that the city gives to the Ojai Valley Museum. One of the fine things we do is currently happening. We have an exhibit, has this fabulous name called "Does Agriculture Have a Future in the Ojai Valley?" Our museum has taken on that task. There is a wonderful exhibit that has lots of information, and it's balanced, very balanced. Well, the other thing we're doing town talks. We just did a town talk on Sunday, which talked about two big things in the valley: water and pests. And we had representatives of ranches and farms that were there that took questions. Very, very well attended. We always guess on putting out chairs, do we do 10 or do we do 100? So we used all of them up. So we have an upcoming town talk that's coming up on July 14th. Another interesting subject. This one is talking about labor and Ojai's agricultural position in the world market. So again, that's something that actually affects every one of us in so many ways. So thank you for your support on the Ojai Valley Museum and for the Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Brian. Next we have Sharon, and then we have Allison Stillman, and then Larry Steingold.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say it was in 1985 that Carl Sagan gave a speech to Congress talking about the imminent dangers of climate change and greenhouse effect. And here we are almost 40 years later, and we're living on a planet where extreme heat waves, catastrophic wildfires, and floods are like common occurrences. I think it was just a few weeks ago that we had several states that were going through F4 level tornadoes hitting. So at the moment, I think in Ojai, at least as far as our water level, things are looking pretty rosy. You know, we've had 2 above average years of precipitation, and Lake Casitas is 100% full as of April, which is great news. And while this is a reason to celebrate, I also believe this respite from drought is more than likely a temporary one. And let us not forget that for several years, the lake hovered just around 30% of capacity. And in 2021, we only received 5 inches of rain, less than 5 inches of rain. So just considering all these things, I appreciate everything that we do for climate mitigation, but I do feel like we could do more. And for that reason, I'm asking that you just allocate more than 3% of this upcoming budget for climate mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Next, we have Allison Stillman, and then Larry Steingold, and then Tom Francis.
Hello, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. So I am here to speak about climate. I am a living climate refugee. I left Ojai a number of years ago and moved to Northern California. My neighborhood burned down, and then moved to Tennessee and went through 5 tornadoes and 2 massive floods and watched people die. And I got trained by Al Gore about 5 years ago and have been working with Climate Reality Project and the scientists involved with Climate Reality Project. It is the singular most important issue facing humanity today. We don't see a lot of what's really going on in the world, and it's dramatic. The first time I trained with him, I cried. I was so depressed. I thought, we don't have a chance. We're not going to survive. And we're on the precipice of a mass extinction right now. And we have the power to make change, but it's going to require all of us to make change. And this city is a very progressive city, and we have the opportunity to become a carbon neutral city relatively easy. Yes, it's going to require a lot of change and maybe some renegotiating with the budget. So I'm here to ask you, implore you for future generations and for the children to come to allocate more money towards climate. We could be carbon neutral in 1 year to 2 years if you allocate more money and get this changes happen. We also set an example for all of the individuals that live in our community, as well as all communities across the country, to really start taking action and listen to the science. watch what's happening in the world. We just had thousands of people die from excessive heat last week alone, right? Unprecedented heat. This year, they're saying that we're going to have Category 5 hurricanes for the first time ever. These are things that haven't happened. They're unprecedented. So I'm here really just encouraging you, please allocate more of this budget towards climate. Our future and our future generations are really dependent upon it. So thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Next we have Larry Steingold, then Tom Francis, and then Jay Simons.
Where to start? Climate. It's a wonderful thing. We're all concerned about greenhouse gases. If we're that concerned, why are we using all the concrete for the bicycle path? We need sidewalks. Great. We take the $3.5 million, build a sidewalk for Cabrillo because we're going to be spending that money because you know they're not. Okay? We need sidewalks all over town. You want people to walk? Great. Build sidewalks. You want to get people off the roads in the city? Provide electric tricycles for people so they can go to the store so we don't have to get in our car. Why not? Where'd the $17.5 million come from? I'm just curious about that. Surprise. The $55 million, are we going to have it next year? Are we going to have it every year? Great. No problem. We got all the money. How much more money is it going to cost when the free money runs out for the unhoused transit encampment? Are we getting a piece of the action from Dignity? Okay, because if they're getting income, we should be getting income because we're going to have to be supporting that thing, okay, from now until forever, because when it's built, we're on it. You want to help people? Take some of the $3 million and use it for chits so that the affordable people who are being tossed out of their homes now because of rent increases, give them the money to stay. If you're that concerned about helping our present Ohioans, help them stay here. Waiting for Cabrillo or help of Ojai, Habitat for Humanity, 3 to 5 years. We've given Cabrillo 5 years to build that thing. Really? 5 years? Is that going to help anybody in Ojai today? I mean, you all have people who are being tossed out because housing prices are going up, rents are going up. So help them stay here. Give them some of the $3.5 million to stay versus spend it. You want to, greenhouse gases, carbon neutral. What does that mean? Okay, no carbon? Why don't we just kill ourselves? I mean, is that going to be the easiest way? We already have too many people on the planet. Is that what you want? I mean, that we complain about too many people. Hey, too many people generate all this stuff. The road budget. Okay, our roads last 15 years. Am I correct, Lindy? 20 years? 20 years. Our plan is what, a 30-year plan? Great, we're already behind the curve. Okay, how about curbs? Great. Sidewalks. Sidewalks in front of former Tipple and Ramble, all right? When is that getting replaced? When are they getting fixed? We have drains that are collapsing. Take the $3.5 million, put it on the shelf. We're going to be needing it because if the sewers are bad and the sidewalks are bad and the roads aren't going to get fixed forever, because some roads don't seem to be getting fixed ever. Sunset Place, I believe it is. Bryant, is that on the list this year? Next year.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Next we have Tom Francis, then Jay Simons, and then Steve Colomay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I handed a one-pager for each of you. I think there's 5 copies to the assistant city clerk, and if you guys could ask him for that, that'd be great. It'll help you understand what I'm talking about. I'm here to talk about the budget, fire, safety, trees, and water. At the outset, I want to state that I strongly support Mayor Pro Tem Whitman's position that we need an active budget committee. I think that would have made this process a lot smoother than it's been this time around, and hopefully when we go through this in the future, we'll have the assistance and the wisdom of a budget committee. I've got a lot to say. I'm pretty certain I'm going to run out of time before I get to all the things I want to touch on, but myself and a few others that are fire safety and native tree advocates took a look at the budget and are asking the council to consider deferring 4 budget line items to another year to allow adequate resources for wildfire preparedness.
The first one is parking lot paving at Rainbow Bridge and down the street on Matilaha across from the farmer market. It's $400,000. We could potentially leave that to another year. The next thing is there's a bucket truck proposed for $400,000. It'd be great to have a new electric bucket truck, but we do have 2 existing bucket trucks that run on gasoline. They're not driven that much, and I think we could wait until we potentially could get some outside funding, maybe, and not have to use city resources. Maybe there's a local agency or a regional agency that could help us with that purchase. The motorcycle officer, $352,280. I hope they'll have enough time to explain at least a little bit of detail as to an alternative proposal to buying a motorcycle and hiring a motorcycle officer. And then the storm drain inspection, I just want to say quickly, perhaps we could spend some of that money on repairing things now that we know need to be done, and not all of it on analysis and inspection. I strongly support Phil White's proposal to spend $500,000 to take all city facilities electric. I think that should be the absolute #1 priority on climate or any environmental front. It should come before anything else. Also, I want to say that it'd be great if we could reallocate $100,000 of what I'm proposing be deferred to another year to basically making it so we can house new electric equipment and vehicles to avoid wiring and other damage by rodents. So I think there's some proposed shade structures, but I think they need to be enclosed fully so that we don't have rodent problems with our new vehicles. Well, I'm running out of time really fast. So lastly, I think with some of the savings here, we could potentially allocate $600,000 to $800,000 for in-town incendiary fuel reduction and native tree care and planting. And I don't have enough time to talk about the motorcycle officer, but there is an alternative plan that's being proposed.
Thank you, Tom. Next we have Jay, then Steve Colomé, and then Anita Cram.
Good evening, City Council members and staff. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been here over the years and many times spoken on behalf of the Ojai Trolley. I'm an 18-year trolley driver, 40-year Ojai resident. So I speak with perhaps a little bit of a unique perspective. While there has been some progress on our trolley situation, and I call it almost being on life support, because we very, very close came to not having a trolley, in my opinion. And that's because we had mechanical problems, we had personnel problems, and we had long-term planning problems. So I really hope that we can take some recommendations to help the trolley thrive in the coming years. And I don't think I need to tell anyone how unique our little trolley service is. It's an integral part of our community and the fabric of our community. And it's so special, I can't begin to tell you how special it is. So we have some things that from our perspective, and when I say our, I'm my trolley driving perspective, we need to hire a full-time trolley supervisor. The current plan says a part-time with 14 part-time drivers. It doesn't work that way. We need a full-time supervisor on location by where the trolleys are. As you know, recently the interim trolley supervisor was moved out of her office and placed in City Hall. Lovely office, fine. Except it doesn't work that way. You need to be there. You need to talk to the drivers, talk to the mechanic. You need to. It's just essential for that part. We also need a staffing plan that addresses how to get new drivers in. I mean, right now we've got maybe a handful of drivers, and these drivers are putting in lots and lots of hours. Now, there was some address of that by making one of the drivers more of a full-time temporary. I don't know exactly what the designation is, and that's helped a lot, but it doesn't begin to cover or offer the flexibility that our system needs, which is having enough drivers to fill in and fill the stuff. We have pulled a trolley off of route because we did not have a driver to drive. And that to me, it just should not happen. It should not happen. And then we also need at least one electric trolley. And that takes a year to get a trolley. We've got 3 trolleys now with the new one, but we're running, we have 2 that go end of life in March. And so this.
Thank you, Jay. Next we have Steve Colomé, and then Anita Cram, and then Michelle Pinero.
Hi, I'm Steve Colomé, Ojai resident. I appreciate the clarification on the budget for climate-related issues, but it's still grossly insufficient for the challenges that this community faces. I recommend tonight, at a bare minimum, that the council direct staff to find funding to follow the program offered by mechanical engineer Phil White and replace the space and water heating mechanical systems in city buildings this year. Why is that important? Commercial HVAC and water heaters last for about 15 years. All of ours are older than that. Older equipment is not only inefficient, it's producing more air pollution in the Ojai Valley, excessive emissions of greenhouse gas emissions, and higher utility costs. Out-of-date appliances are also a risk. Cracked fireboxes, displaced flues, and other failures, and I could give you a full hour lecture on that. Phil White was Steve Bennett's appointee to the Ventura County Planning Commission and was one of the first air pollution control officers in Ventura County when the agency was cleaved from the South Coast. He provided review of Ojai's mechanical systems along with city staff James Hahn pro bono. Space and water heaters are to be replaced with modern emission-free heat pumps. Fossil fuel combustion equipment is capped at efficiencies of around 90%. What people don't realize is that due to the magic of physics, heat pumps can achieve efficiencies of 200 to 400%, meaning that for every dollar of purchased electricity returns at least twice as much usable heat or cooling. It's really wonderful. In terms of the voice of the community, during the initial visioning and goal setting for the revised general plan, the community clearly placed a very high priority on mitigation and adaptation programs and funding to address our climate risks. What are these? Wildfires. The next time, there may not be a hole in the donut that we get by. Drought cycles. Atmospheric rivers, something we haven't really talked a lot about. We're literally playing Russian roulette if there is a direct hit from a climate-induced Pineapple Express in through our valley. Today, we are also paying the price for high property insurance rates and increasing numbers of cancellations of policies. As for implementation, it will be far more efficient for your mechanical contractor to order all equipment, assemble the staff, and move from one building to the next and accomplish through the year. All of that can be done for less than the cost that you approved of a recreational pickleball complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next we have Anita, and then Michelle Pinero, and then Bill Miley.
Good evening, everyone. So I appreciate the hard work that went into this budget. It's obvious. So thank you for that. And the electrification focus is important. And as everyone has said, we need to do more to address climate change in our valley. City Council Resolution 19-30 passed in 2019 has a lot of whereases and resolves to that detail the existential threat of climate change and measures to address this very important issue. We need a climate action committee. Many cities are doing this, are realizing how important this is, and from what I can gather, we were doing this. And this effort was paused in 2023 due to budget issues. So now is the time to press play on this. Climate should be a facet of every budget item where it can apply. And things that should be in it are cool paving. There are many forms to do it. Some are better, some are worse. Specific conditions in one city have a different cool climate cool paving to address it. Native plant and mature oak retention, because they also, it's not only biodiversity, those native oaks the old ones sequester more carbon than probably hundreds of newly planted trees could do. So, you know, the effects of cooling with the tree mapping is good, but it needs to go into a larger context. And a climate action committee is what would be the expertise for that. Climate resilience and development standards, tourism climate effects, and climate education for tourists. There's so many ways that we could be doing it, and we could be setting models. We have a captive audience with tourism. The city could take a lead in this and how to educate our tourists on what's going on and be a model city for this. And I have confidence that you all can do this. I really do. And I, too, am kind of questioning the motorcycle cop thing of maybe, you know, the sheriff used to do some enforcement. I actually got stopped on my bicycle in Miners Oaks on El Roblar one evening for not having a headlight on. And he said, I'm not going to write you a ticket, but next time I will. And I talked to somebody else at the same time who said they actually got a ticket for the same thing. So, I mean, if they can enforce bike things and give tickets, is there a way that something more can be negotiated there? So thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Next we have Michelle Pinero and then Bill Miley.
Hello. So nice to see you all tonight. I'm here to talk about something that impacts everybody in Ojai. And it's our city's response to climate change. Specifically, I want to address our city's budget and capital improvement plan, which currently only has allocated around 3% to address climate change. It does not reflect the urgency or the priority that climate action demands. Every year that we delay action, the costs, both financial and human, only increase. The global average temperature is now 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, edging closer to 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold that scientists warn will lead to catastrophic and irreversible impacts. It's our moral duty to step up. And as so many people have already spoken, it's not just this thing that's far out into the future. It's something that's impacting us now, our insurance policies, our quality of life. And, you know, I just, you know, as a human, on a human level, you guys, like when you all were campaigning, everyone had climate or something on their lawn signs. Like it was really cute when it was there and everybody was seeing that. But now is the time to step up and to really put this into action. We're looking to you to do the right thing, the thing that you said that you were going to do. And it's just also, it's super frustrating, and I'm sure that the newer members of council can really relate to this. When you're on the outside looking in, this report was put out on Friday at 6 p.m. It gave nobody a chance to review this or to even get community input or just find out what's going on. I received this report and how much was allocated to climate via somebody else who has experience going through budgets that are complicated, and you know, they explained to me what was going on and I would have not found out otherwise. So it's not that only one or two people care about this issue. It's that nobody actually knows what is going on and nobody is being asked for input. I got 2 knocks on my door about something that I don't think is life or death. And I've got 0 knocks on my door about what I think about the climate and our budget and what we should be doing. It's really frustrating. It's disenfranchising. I can't stress to you enough how much people care about this issue, but they're just not being called in to speak about it because they don't know what's going on. And to that point, I circulated a petition earlier today, and only from this morning I got 34 signatures for people that would like to increase the budget for climate mitigation. Give me a few days and I will get a couple hundred on there from your districts. I am really passionate about this issue. I'm following up on it. And I also would like to see the comments that came in after 3 p.m. to be submitted to council. I think it's important that that be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next we have Bill Miley.
Hello. The total proposed budget for 24 and 25 is estimated to be $56.7 million and expenditures of $55. That's good. Within this is even better. A net surplus of $474,000 280. Okay. So I would suggest that the council consider community grants for some of this surplus money, which your council chose you couldn't do earlier in the year, especially a community service grant to help of Ojai to expand their homeless caseworker services. There were 2 letters in the comments for this meeting tonight. One I want to comment on comes from Jay Simmons, who just spoke. I don't know him. He talks about he's an 18-year trolley driver for Ojai. He spoke about the need for improved management of the trolley system. He said these kinds of things in the letter. I hope you read it, but you really should go back and look at it. I'm a 41-year-old resident, 18-year-old trolley driver. We need to recruit and hire a full-time trolley supervisor. We need a staffing plan, I'm summarizing, that immediately addresses the acquisition and training of new drivers. We're literally running on the backs of just a few drivers. We had to pull a trolley off the route because we didn't have anybody to drive it. We need to purchase at least 1 electric. I think we're doing that. 2 or 3 of the functioning trolleys, they end useful life in March of next year. It's hard to understand the Go Green electrification of the city's workforce fleet when we ignore the pollution of our transit policies. And he ends with, we need the city council to direct staff as to the priority and importance to the community of the trolley. The trolley is on life support now. The second supervisor just resigned. This should be a wake-up call. And here's what I know about what's in the budget. We have $800 or more for drivers for overtime. The average driver starts out at $20 an hour, and that's $40,000 a year. You can't live on that in Ojai. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments online?
Yes, Mayor. We have 2 raised hands during this public hearing for our Zoom participants. First, we'll have Erica, followed by Electrify Ojai. Erica, you are unmuted and you have the floor.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say that I think the budget is a really powerful tool for our community to take action on addressing climate change. So, we have these plans, we have these ideas, but unless you have the budget to back them up, it's not very meaningful. So I think this is a really critical moment for our community to act on climate. So I'm in support of a lot of these adjustments that I've heard. And I think we have a lot of good reason to do it. So for example, swapping out our HVAC systems for heat pumps, the industry is already moving in that direction. Even people who don't care about climate are installing heat pumps because they're efficient. They save money. And there's also health benefits when you're not burning fossil fuels. So I think there are reasons, even outside of climate, to switch to heat pumps, but obviously they offer great decarbonizing benefits too. I'm a sustainability professional. I'm actually at a conference right now of sustainability professionals across the state, and I'm hearing about all the amazing work cities are doing across California to decarbonize, and I want Ojai to be part of that leadership. I think we have a lot of passion for the environment. There's a lot of appreciation for the environment living in the beautiful town that we live in, but we need to translate that love for our environment into action. And that comes with putting money behind these projects. And we know what to do. We know how to decarbonize our buildings, to decarbonize our fleet. And there's lots of resources available. I'm happy to share what I'm learning about at this conference. There's tax credits that we can get, even though we as a city don't have tax liability. Lots of different funding opportunities that might help supplement what the city budget can do. So I'll leave it at that, but I just want to say that I support a very climate forward budget for Ojai. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Next, we have Electrify Ojai. You have the ability to unmute. Please state your name if you choose to and begin.
Yes, hi, this is Michelle Ellison, and I'm signed in as Electrify Ojai, I think from a former Zoom meeting.
So good evening and thank you staff for putting together this budget and council for taking a close look at it. I appreciate the funding for items related to climate and decarbonization. I appreciate seeing some increases in that since the last meeting. But I still think we can, and there is room in the budget to do more. Looking at the general fund, looking at the capital improvement fund for this year, I was able to identify several line items which I think are really potentially postponable. They're not as urgent as a need as decarbonizing. So I would highly recommend that at this council meeting tonight, that we revise and reallocate $500,000 to decarbonizing all of our facilities, and we could achieve that this year. How amazing would that be? That in this next fiscal year, by 2025, we could be not using fossil fuel gas appliances in all of our facilities. So I think that is achievable, and that could be a good focus for our city and for this council tonight, and not wait for some meeting months from now to potentially make that adjustment, because we don't know what budget considerations will be then and whether or not there will be other things happening. So I think right now is the appropriate time to make that allocation. And this kind of part of our general fund, our operating expenses and the capital improvement plan. I think the delta, that other fund, that $3.4 million fund, that's another conversation. And I think we should keep it separate and certainly allocate some of that money towards climate decarbonization efforts as well. But I think for the purposes of tonight and the focus on, there is room in the budget. So I would recommend that you go that route, and really appreciate all you're doing on this, and forward to seeing what we can do as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That's it, Weston?
That's it, Mayor.
Okay, let's take a brief break and we will be
Mayor?
back for discussion. Yep.
If I may, since we did have a notice public hearing, you did open the public hearing at 7:30, and I would ask you if you close it as well.
Let's close the public hearing.
Thank you,
All
Mayor.
right, thank you. All right. Okay.
Check.
All right, we are back. And we will move on to discussion for item number 3. Who would like to begin? Don't all jump at once.
Sure, I'll go.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
So, I listened very carefully to the climate discussion. I'm very concerned about climate. There is, there was some discussion about the idea about, our town heading off the climate emergency that lots of scientists believe we're headed towards. But it's not really an our town issue. It's like 100,000 towns or 10,000 towns, or I don't, all it's a fundamental change in the way that municipalities address climate, because the reality is that nations are not addressing it. They're giving lip service to it, but they're not doing anything. We have the ability to do something, and I'd like to see us support that and be a leader. I do think that, Phil White has given us an opportunity to identify about $350,000 in equipment that's overdue for being replaced, that would reduce carbon emissions from those pieces of equipment. I'm also listening to the city manager, who's saying that we can bring that forward for a more deliberate discussion about how that takes place. And we can bring that discussion forward as early as July. And I'm sure there's a lot of public that wants to weigh in on, how we potentially add expenditures to the budget. I have kind of the same feeling about the motorcycle cop. I know that when I talked to people before our priorities workshop, and I got feedback from, quite a number of people, the number one issue that people wanted to talk about was streets and transportation, and just, traffic, safety, the quality of our roads. And I've been talking with the folks on Guayama since more than a year ago. I think, Betsy, you were at that meeting. I think you were too, Lindy. And, one of the things that they talked about is just getting people to slow down so the street could be safe. And the traffic officer addressing that issue, a motorcycle's ability to address kids on e-bikes doing wheelies at 30 miles an hour down the road is probably much more, there's much more capacity to address that with a a motorcycle cop than there is with a Escalade. So my understanding is that although we've put a place in the budget for that, it still has to come to us for an approval process. And for all the public that wants to say that that's a bad idea, so one of my concerns is that no fault of any of you, but I don't think that any of us are experts in this, and
Experts on what?
on any of the things that we address. and how to manage traffic in Ojai is something that we can all have ideas about, but we need to have experts telling us that this is the, because we're not the only city who's attempting to solve problems. The experts have the ability to say, if we have a good one, we've been down this road, and these are the things that work, and these are the things that don't work. And I think with as much feedback as I've received about traffic, streets, street design, I think we would really benefit from having a discussion with the experts about how to better control the traffic concerns that we have. And my final comment is going to be that the discussion of $3.4 million, I mean, I don't know that we have that money. It's going to take some more understanding of just exactly what our obligations are. And, in particular, I'm concerned that we might be heading on a path in which we, as a city, are going to be responsible for the homeless encampment financially, that we are not going to qualify for the grant. I mean, I know they gave us the grant money, but we have to do what they tell us to do. And I'm, very leery about saying we have money to do other things when we have so many things that are just like part of our basic obligations, including, most importantly, that we take care of our streets, stay on top of maintenance and repaving, and that we also stay on top of our financial obligations to our retirees. So those are my kind of general comments about the budget. I guess I would say that I would support specifying the money that's been earmarked by Phil White, which is about $350,000. But I'm open to the idea that we would do that at a meeting in July.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to put a motion on the table to focus the discussion, or wait?
Yeah, I'll put a motion on the table that we do approve direct staff to find the place where we can allocate the $350,000 by backing out $350,000 somewhere else. I'm open to suggestions about doing that. I guess of the things that were talked about, I'm not sure what the parking lot at Rainbow Bridge is about and how that came about as being an item, and maybe Lindy can respond to that. But I thought the one that I had the least support for is the bucket truck, and maybe you can address that as well, Lindy.
About the parking lots. We've got in our CIP, over the 5-year CIP, we are touching all of the city parking lots. So we've had some claims of trip and falls and some liability concerns at Rainbow Bridge. And the 400,000 is not specifically for Rainbow. It's not only for Rainbow Bridge. It's Rainbow Bridge. It's really like 4 or 5 projects. It's the alley towards south of Rainbow Bridge, and and into the area, the little street that comes off Matilaha, and all the way over to the other side where Serendipity is. So it's all of those parking lots in that area. We've had at Rainbow Bridge, we've had some falls. At the other one across from the farmers market, we've had some problems there as well. So we can certainly postpone them, but we need to start doing them at some point.
And do we know why we're looking at a new bucket truck?
Yes. So this is our large bucket truck, and we need it to for above 30 feet. So trimming trees. Our bucket truck is out of service a lot, and so this is, again, our fleet is aging. So we are trying to just sort of triage at this point and decide which pieces of equipment and which vehicles that we replace.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so my motion is to direct staff to find a place in the budget to allocate $346,000 for the replacement list that was created by Phil White for the stuff not currently in the existing CIP.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that. There might be more amendments
Okay,
in the
all right,
course of time. Okay.
Thank you.
May I
sure.
have a
Go
turn?
ahead.
Okay. I wanted to comment on hiring experts. We have been hiring experts since I was watching council meetings and running for election in 1994. Between 1996 and 2000, we hired a traffic calming expert, Eugene Judd. He had great plans for Ojai Avenue. Cost a lot of money. Public wasn't ready for that kind of dramatic traffic calming. Okay, then back in, I think it was 2016, we did and then we hired experts to do the bicycle pedestrian master plan. The first one, I believe, was 1998. Then we have a complete streets plan. Everything the experts have told us what to do. We have to implement it. We have to have the will to put bicycle lanes above car parking. Number one. Okay, the experts have already given their advice. We might tweak it, but the documents are already there. Okay. Now I too I feel conflicted about hiring a motorcycle police presence. And if I did, acquiesce to the council majority that we needed it, it'd just be temporary until we have the infrastructure, the traffic calming infrastructure. Then we don't need, we might still need it, but it would be less, the speed bumps, the infrastructure. It's been shown that bike lanes, by narrowing the street, reduce speed. Now, it can also be argued that that car parking reduces speed. That's the other side of it. But all of this has been looked at. The documents are there. So if we need to hire another traffic calming expert to implement, to get council support, so be it. I consider that money well spent. But let's acknowledge that the experts have advised this city for a long, long time, at least 24 years. No, longer than that, 26.
And
Okay.
and just quickly in response to that,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. My point wasn't to suggest we're going to spend money, allocate now,
Yeah.
the engineering study, but if I think that a traffic officer is something that we have to look at, for enforcement purposes, along with all the other stuff, and we should resurrect those reports that you're talking about, and we should be talking about them as we have these conversations.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that. The other thing I want to say, I do support the comments made by the public about climate mitigation. And I want to say something because I have friends and people I know who don't believe that we're in a climate crisis, and they don't believe that this council has the expertise to declare a climate emergency. And I am aware of the two conversations. I mean, you would not believe the different things that perfectly almost, that nice people can disagree on. But my reason for supporting climate mitigation, whether there's a climate crisis or not, I personally believe that there is, but say that there isn't, it's still sound, good care of the earth. We should have policies and the means for people to reduce their energy consumption. We should have an economy that doesn't depend on waste. All of that we need to do just as responsible stewards of the earth, whether there's a climate emergency or not. So I support, and I want to somehow weave into this budget at the right time the suggestions that were made, the recommendations that were made.
Councilmember Lang?
Yes. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about the budget and a lot of soul searching. And one thing, I have just a couple of sort of zoom out comments to make before I zoom in. And my zoom out comments are, how we spend money shows what we care about. There's a real link between values and priorities and budget line items. And we all care about the environment. That is something that we all five share in common. And it's something that we know that many members of our community care about, because even if they don't believe in climate or the climate emergency, like you were saying, Sousa, everybody wants to live in a place that has trees and shade and where you can walk and bike and take your kids in a stroller. So there's a lot that we can do for climate that just makes our community better to live in. One thing and since I'm still back in the zoomed out place, I want us to do this in a different way next year. This budget isn't about dreaming of how we can make Ojai better. This budget is, let's take care of all I understand we have to do infrastructure, but I think that when we think about the budget next year, that having a committee in place, really looking at what are some long-term projects that we can do for the community, like the community pool, for example. I've heard so many people talking about our need for a community pool. And so I'm going to advocate for having that visioning, dreaming kind of conversation with the community as we talk about the $3.4 million to spend, and also as we talk about the budget for next year. That said, I am definitely in favor. So now I'm going to zoom in. I'm definitely in favor of finding, directing staff to find funding for the replacement of our equipment, our HVAC equipment, and moving toward heat pump technology. First of all, our appliances are out of date, and it's costing the city money. We're actually going to make money back in our energy costs by changing those out. So I think it's a no-brainer. And then I also want to pick up this conversation about the trolley as well, because that fits into environment. Environment meaning the services that we're offering, and also meaning how are we caring for the environment. And as Sousa, you've talked about, individuals driving in cars is not good for the environment. So I would also like to see if staff can look for ways to support. I think I'm going to ask if we can add to your motion for staff to look at a plan. I know we already have a plan in place with the CIP for getting an electric trolley, but if we could look at hiring a trolley supervisor and see what's available for that. You don't have to accept my my friendly amendment, but I'm just putting it out there.
May I make a comment or a question?
Mr. City Manager.
Sure, just for clarification. So while we do have a trolley supervisor retiring, we fully plan to recruit and replace that position. And the assistant city manager is overseeing the entire transit function. He's not here this evening, he's on vacation, but he has been tasked with drafting a transit plan and bringing that forward for your review. So there is a lot of work going on in the transit side of the house, and expect more on that later, but that's already underway.
Great, thank you.
May I just
well,
ask the city manager about that? So are you basically saying this is going to come back as an agenda item separate? Because that's what I'm looking for. I have questions about what transpired, because we did get a letter from the former supervisor. I'd like better understanding of why she suddenly quit, and the comments that was made that the moving of the office didn't work. All of that, I've only, hearsay. I want to know the facts on that.
Yeah, and I would just quickly add that a lot of that is not really something that the council needs to really discuss. It's just on the operation side, but we can certainly explain the state of affairs in transit. And in the short time that I've been here, there's been a huge improvement in the transit function. It's not where we want it to be just yet, but we've made a lot of progress, and there's a lot more stability. We have more trolleys out there in service. We've addressed some mechanical concerns. There's much more to do. We'd like to bring to you some things for your consideration, but some of the weeds discussions about, what about this office move, and what hours does this person work? That's not within the council's. That's not a policy level discussion. That's an operations level discussion. That's what you entrust me to oversee.
So if we have questions, we can still.
You can always come to me for that, but it's not something to be going through here at the dais.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So right off the bat, yes, I support the finding of $346,000 to change out old equipment to, new energy efficient equipment. We obviously have enough to be able to do that. So that makes perfect sense. The community supports it, to the extent that they, people that have showed up definitely support it. But once again, I'm going to harken back to what Councilmember Francina has said often, is that this is not necessarily greenwashing, but this is piecemeal, and it's not acceptable for me. We need a bold and a bigger plan, and perhaps that is part of the visioning process that we start talking about. But how do we, to Anita Crum's point, integrate biodiversity here? What do we talk about? So for me, I'm working on various kinds of thoughts that are all encompassing and across the board. They incorporate everything. They don't just piecemeal here and there, and I plan to bring that forward. But in the interim, I will definitely support the new equipment. I would love to have a climate policy where we can actually start broaching these visioning kinds of things, because if we come back year after year and we're like, well, we want to switch out this and we want to switch out that, unless we really make a statement and we're bold, we're going to be doing this forever, and not really moving the needle, to tell you the truth. I mean, how long did we work on the REACH code that ended up being, applicable to 2 houses and was thrown out by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? So that kind of movement is not fast enough, and it's not broad enough, it's not educational enough. And I'm hoping that this entire council can get behind moving that needle in a really bold way. So that having been said, listening to Lindy, if we have liability issues, that also means that our citizens have fallen and hurt themselves. So it's not just, protecting us against liability, but we have citizens and or visitors, who knows, but let's just say we have people that fall and hurt themselves, and that's not acceptable in my book. Whether or not they sue, we should provide pavement that doesn't lend itself to that. Likewise, if we can't cut trees, or if we can't prune trees, or we can't take care of trees because we don't have a bucket truck, well, that's also a problem. So, but I do assume that we can find the money somewhere, and so let's go ahead and do that. And so I support the motion, and I ask my fellow council members to look forward to an all-encompassing idea around saving the planet. What else can I say?
Well, yeah, I completely agree. We need to save the planet. I think we have heard from the community. I've heard from many community members recently, and I'd like to remind the council that in 2020 we passed Measure C by 83%, which is huge, and that is something we all need to pay attention to. So when 83% of our population says they want swift climate action, we need to listen to that. Measure C was passed for fire safety, water supply, climate action, roads, and trees. So I think it is our moral obligation to the planet, to the children on our planet, to do as much as we possibly can. I'm so grateful to Pam. Thank you so much, Pam. To Lindy, to our city manager, to our city attorney, to our wonderful staff for working so hard on this budget. And yes, we do have to adopt a budget. I realize that. I also realize that we do have an emergency, and you don't have to be a scientist. All you have to do is look at the news and be aware of what's happening on the planet and watch the weather patterns to know that we are in a crisis. So I think delaying is not an option at this point. Sorry. And you know, I love the idea of an RFP and an energy management plan. Great, let's do that. A budget climate policy, for sure, let's do that. I think, though, at this point, we really do have to do as much as we can. So I appreciate that we need a bucket truck, yes, and that we need to repave, yes. I do think, though, at this point, we need to take that money, you know, and I know that enforcement is the most efficient way. I think I've heard from many members of our community who don't want a police officer, a motorcycle cop. And there's a letter going around with people's names on it and with an alternative solution. So I would like to look into that. But more importantly, getting back to the climate, I think everything. You guys finished? I think everything is climate, and that we have a real emergency here, and we just owe it to the voters. And you know, we have more cars because we've expanded our economy here in Ojai. So we have so many more trips in cars because our economy, you know, tourism has exploded. So with that, we have more accidents, we have more distracted drivers, and we have more walkers. So we need to pay attention to that. We need, thank you for bringing up the trees. We have made promises to plant more trees, to create more canopy, which, you know, for example, in our neighborhood, that would make such a huge difference. And I know it takes 20 years. We can't wait, though. I really feel an urgency here that we cannot wait. You know, and coast live oaks are known for their fire resiliency and ability to catch flying embers, and that's why fires start here. So planting them and other water-wise vegetation would really help in terms of our climate adaptation over the long term. So I appreciate your motion, Mayor Pro Tem. Would you consider any more friendly amendments to look at, you know, some other options to provide more funding for the climate? You know, for example, the bucket truck or...
yeah, but let me just comment that I was totally convinced by what Lindy said in response to the paving at the arcade, behind the arcade, and the bucket truck. I was just kind of throwing those out as ideas to look at. I guess my question is our giving you a $346,000 goal something that's kind of, you know, executable without you having to come back and get us all to, you know, vote one more time?
Yeah, he doesn't like it, but I've just reduced his budget in half and we're done.
Excellent.
What happened? What just happened?
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Haha.
Through the
Not haha. But sorry, if I could respond to this question. Sorry, didn't mean to be flippant. Yes, I can take that as direction if that's what you want me to do, to find, roughly $350,000. Now, are you saying retain all expenditures, but somehow go in and determine, I'm going to have to trim from something, clearly, right? And
I'm assuming yes.
Okay, all right, just make okay. I could take that if that was the direction. Yes, I could absolutely do that, and then we could. I just have to say I have a little bit of a concern. I don't know that will cover the entire electrification of all the facilities. I don't know that. I think it might be a little bit more, and I do worry a little bit about the operational impact side of it as well. It's certainly doable, but I think that might be a little bit optimistic, and I don't know that I have all the answers as to exactly what I need to do to make all the replacements.
You're recommending that that our number is larger than 346.
I would feel more comfortable if it was, and I think it's doable. But I will also throw out, and this is for your decision, you're the policymakers. I mean, you do have a delta of 3.4 million. You could say, of that unprogrammed money, we'd like you to use this much for this purpose. And, I could easily do that, but I can, whatever you want to do, we're going to drive the car wherever you want us to drive you.
Okay. What number makes you comfortable about
$500,000, I think, if I was going to, and if I'd love to come back and say, I only spent 350, or I only spent, 425, whatever. I'm not trying to spend the entire amount. It just gives me a buffer.
Through the mayor, please.
Yep.
I'm not comfortable taking and using the delta, honestly.
Okay.
I think that that's a larger community conversation.
Okay.
And so I would not be comfortable doing that, because it is a larger community conversation. And also, at this point, then I would throw back that perhaps we should wait until July when we have, when we reconvene to talk about the climate policy. $500,000 is a lot of money, and if we really feel like it's difficult to trim that much money, then I would prefer that we come back and we discuss it. And as I said, I'm not comfortable taking $500,000 from the Delta Fund without more community input, honestly.
If I could just, one more, sorry, really quickly. If council pleases, and this is fine too, I could take the money for the bucket truck, and we could come back and talk. I would definitely come back to you and talk about replacing that at a later date, but I could use that. It's not as much as I would like to have, but I would feel a little more comfortable with that for the electrification purpose, that project.
Okay. But you were going to propose,
well,
I think, an additional amount for some other.
And if we could postpone the paving, I mean, of course, I hear you that people are tripping, but if we can postpone that paving, which is 400,000, to devote to fire safety and trees. We really haven't done anything for fire safety in a while. And
the only thing I will add on that, sorry, Mayor, to interrupt you, is that just keep in mind that all your paving projects, when you delay them, they get more expensive.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with deferring the paving project after hearing the explanation for why we need it. So my suggestion would be we keep it at the 346. That when we come back in July, if the completion of that replacement list is, we're going to have a shortfall, we look at it then and add to it if that's necessary.
Okay, and the analysis of the storm drains, which is 450,000, is there any way to reduce that? That's the other question, which you already asked.
I did.
And just confirming.
We had 250 and then 100, I think. So I think we're at 350.
And so that's not an analysis. One is an actual replacement
One is
effort, and the other is a master plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can probably add as well. We had a grant for the Sarasota sport courts in the amount of about $200,000. We have been successful in shifting that to the pickleball courts. So there's 200,000 from Measure C that we are going to be grant funded at this point. So That's my contribution.
So through the mayor, through the mayor.
Yep.
At this point, as these figures are flying around and these options are floating, and I think we need a little bit more structure to the conversation, honestly. So thank you for that. It's good to know we have 200,000 extra. But I'm going to kind of say that what I can grok and what I can wrap my head around is $346,000 to see what kind of heat pumps what we can do with that, with the buildings, and perhaps prioritize, not that I want this to be a huge project, but prioritize what is possible to do with $346,000 and what potentially we will sort of work into over the next year. To me, that is a reasonable compromise that gets us to a place where we want to be without undue, complexity, or putting, when people fall, it's not just liability. It's not even just that they fell, but they could really hurt themselves, and they could hurt themselves for a long time. And so, that's what I live with that.
I'm going to just add, I hear all my council members, and I appreciate it. And clearly we have a lot to do. Going back once again, 83% of our population voted for Measure C, looking for trees, climate action, fire safety. And I really do feel that is our moral obligation. It doesn't sound as if I have support on council to find more ways to put more money to climate at this point, although maybe I do. I just like, for the record, to say that responsibility is responsibility, our ability to respond to what's needed. And I think that right now, historically, we need swift climate action now.
Yes. So I agree with my fellow council members about how hearing the fact that we've had falls at Rainbow, at the parking lots, that has changed my opinion about, I think we need to do those. But I'm going to suggest that if we do, even though I can't make a motion about this and I want to, move forward, that if we do have money that comes back from the grant, specifically from recreation, from Parks and Rec, that money be designated to the fire safety and to the trees. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, we have a motion. We have a second. Are we ready for a roll call?
Yes, Mayor.
Yep.
Could we?
For the record and
Yeah,
for you all, I'll repeat
please.
it back. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitman with a second by Councilmember Francina to adopt the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 annual budget and direct staff to find location and or replacement to specify $346,000 in the adopted budget for the proposed equipment replacement list at city facilities, which is understood as being specified in a communication by Phil White.
I'm sorry, I have a question to that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we still don't know where that 346,000 is going to come from, because our initial idea of taking it from the Delta Fund doesn't find fruition in my mind. Likewise, we're still planning on paving, and likewise, is it the bucket truck that we're going to phase in, or where's that money coming from?
So you could go a couple of ways here. You can either direct me right now to find the money, and if I was put on the spot, I'd say, well, I'll temporarily defer the bucket truck purchase, and that's the money right there. That's easy. I still have an operational need, and I'll look at that, but I can do that. Might be less because we have some found money from a grant, so maybe it's a little bit less. That's what I would suggest on the fly.
Okay, I'm not going to support that.
I'm going to withdraw my second because I feel uneasy.
We need the bucket truck.
Okay, is there a second for the motion on the table?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Rule.
No.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Can I make a second motion? Or
Is it too late?
Is it too late to make not a substitute motion, but an additional one with regard to the
I
budget?
mean, the budget was just approved.
Okay.
But it depends on this. Is
Well,
it within the agenda item?
I was going to direct staff to come back with a report on the extra grant funding, on the found money, so that we could see exactly how much we have, and then we could discuss it and the potential of getting a bucket truck or planting trees.
Yeah, that's within the agenda
That's-
item, and I think it's already on the city
I think
manager's
it's
to-do
already
list.
happened,
Okay.
right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
I would like to make a comment,
well,
if I may. But are we still?
It's over. We're
No, it's
finished.
not over. If I have a comment, it's not over. I just want to state for the record, I take issue that if we didn't vote for this, that we're not as keen about solving the climate crisis. Because I want to repeat again that the only way to resolve the climate crisis is a complete lifestyle change. What we're doing here is just a little drop in the bucket. It may look good, but it's not going to solve the underlying issue of overconsumption, our whole lifestyle. I mean, it's almost like we're living in two different realities. People are, it's insane. Our lifestyle is insane. And this is just a little bit, and I have good reason to feel uneasy about, but to think that this is, when you say we're in a climate emergency and we have to do this for future generations, to me, that is just a very myopic perspective. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
More to
Let's
come.
let's continue and move on to council members' reports. Anyone have anything to report?
Council member reports. Well, if anyone else does, I do have, but I have to.
I can make a quick one while you're
Let's
thinking.
take turns and let's bring it through the chair. Who would like to begin? Yep.
I was at APCD this afternoon, and this is kind of a fun one, but we were approving funding that encourages the ship traffic in the channel to proceed at a lower speed as a way of reducing carbon emissions in the channel. And somebody from NOAA showed up, and he happened to mention that the whale watching at the current time is something that they haven't seen in 40 years in terms of there's like 30 blue whales in the channel right now. And I just thought it'd be, good to share that information with the community if they're listening.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Lang?
Yes, I just wanted to remind everybody that we have our annual Pride Festival on celebration on Sunday from 11 to 2. We'll be starting the talks and the parade getting lined up around 10:30. And I want to give a very special shout out to our Pride coordinators and also to Christy Riviera, who has been so great to work with.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's going to be big this year, celebration and picnic.
Yeah.
So please come, everybody, come on out. Okay, anybody else? Yep.
Yeah. So question was asked for the status of the new animal service director, and there has been I was on a panel almost a month ago to the day, May 30th, I think it was, and we interviewed 5 candidates. I have to be very careful because there's certain things I'm not allowed to state because they're confidential. But I believe that I can safely say that I was on a panel. It was supposed to be 5 people. One didn't come. That's a whole other conversation. but we interviewed five candidates that in some ways was similar to when we interviewed for our city manager. And there has been absolutely no response from the county as to the status of those candidates, except one candidate is on medical leave. And then in the afternoon, there was another panel. They interviewed the same candidates, and you would think that by now we would find out if somebody communicated the choices between the two panelists. And so I have written a letter and all of this we're going to be discussing with the city manager. So the quick answer is there's an acting director, I guess you call it. I think it's the accountant, but somebody else is, the staff is running the show. Yeah, and that's a great concern to me. Am I all right legally?
Yeah, in short, there's no new director in place yet. The
Yeah.
hiring process is ongoing, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, anyone else?
I also want to, I think this is a council report. I did see glue traps, some kind of glue traps at the local pet shop by Vaughn's. And I don't know if the public, do we have a brochure or something that we can give to the manager? How should the public handle it when they see glue traps in city stores?
Real quick, what I always recommend for any member of the public is downloading the My Ojai app, and that's a code enforcement concern. A code is
Okay.
not being followed, and you can certainly take a picture. That's the best, and we can see the actual violation. Put it
Okay.
in there; it goes right into the queue for the code enforcement officer to follow up. We
Okay.
did send out notification to those stores that we thought would be selling
Okay.
glue traps. I don't think
Okay.
that we envisioned pet stores doing that, but thank you for that. We can respond to that.
Okay, I'm going to take a picture and double check.
I will respond.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything more. You've given me enough to go on. But anybody
Okay.
who's listening to this, we prefer all types of requests for service, code enforcement issues to come through the My Ojai app, because then it goes right into the work queue.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that tomorrow, 7 p.m., there's going to be a broadband information meeting, and Jamie Fleming will be hosting it, and it's at the Oakview Park and Resource Center. So if anyone would like to have an update on what is happening with the Valley-wide, well, actually, the region-wide broadband push out, whatever, that would be a time to go, and I will go and be happy to report back as well.
Thank you.
City manager's report? Nope. Okay, so we will go ahead
No,
and.
wait, future agenda.
Yeah.
Future agenda.
Do you have a future agenda item you'd like to
I
bring
do.
forward?
I do too. I have a question. And the public is asking this question. Are we still having the presentation for the public about on Dignity Moves, where where we're going to show them what it looks like, or do we have to wait until we have another site?
So
The status.
Yeah, thank you for the question. At the next meeting, the regular city council meeting, which is July 9th, we will have an update on the ERF grant and the status and what's happening with that. And there's been a lot of information out there in the newspapers and so on and so forth over the past week.
Yes.
I don't envision having any type of detailed discussion about what we're envisioning at a particular location like we were talking about having,
Okay.
because we don't have a location
Yeah,
in mind
yeah.
at this point. Instead, I envision this more as here's where we are, here are some frequently asked questions, here are some answers. It'll allow the public to hear and to ask more questions and respond. I will ask a representative from Dignity Moves, likely Jeff Gaddis, to be
Mhm.
present at that meeting as well.
And then, the people that came to the podium with their ideas, well-intentioned and everything. I think I have a two-part question. I hope I can ask it. They don't need the city's permission to look for what they consider suitable properties. They just need to come to you to make sure they're clear on what the 4 criteria are.
Sure. Anybody can, and that's
Yeah.
kind of why I put it out there. Like we've got
Yeah.
basically 4 filters that available properties need to pass through, and I'm happy to field any calls or questions from somebody who has a particular lot in mind.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think the rest I'll just deal with on my own. Thank you.
Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, I wanted to move forward the idea of the ad hoc committee and what that might look like. I thought initially coming in, I had the idea broached to me, and I wasn't particularly, seemed to me like it would confuse issues quite a bit, really. But in listening to everyone, it occurred to me that there was great sense in the idea of getting the community behind the project and letting everyone participate in making it a success. I was quite struck by how many people came up and said, we want this to work here. We want to help. So for that reason, I would like to at least have a discussion on the ad hoc committee and what that might look like. We can use a jumping off point, for their suggestion, but, and we can figure out if that works for us. But I was quite taken by it and actually convinced that that it would be a great thing to have the entire community say, we support this. Not that I think that this council couldn't do it, you couldn't do it, staff couldn't do it. I certainly believe that we could, but I think it's a wiser path to bring in the community, especially, they were very convincing to me. So I would like to figure out what that looks like. Is it a special meeting? What is it? And how might we do that?
So I might just suggest I could include that as part of my agenda item on the 9th, and we could, have a 2-part discussion. Here's an update on what's going on and where we sit. And secondly, we could entertain a discussion about putting together an ad hoc committee and who might be on it and how it might work.
I would support that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we will move on to our closed session. Anything to report out, Mr. City Attorney, before we move to closed session?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The council will be meeting in closed session to consider 3 items. 1, a item of potential litigation against the city related to facts and circumstances that the city believes may result in litigation, but which are not yet known to potential plaintiff or plaintiffs, for 1 matter. And 2nd, public employee performance evaluation for city manager and city attorney. No reportable action is expected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you all for being here.